Alright guys, round 2 on this one. Let's see how well I can go. Okay, so I am going to share this illustration file with you, this illustration object with you on the Discord, so then that way it's easy to set up. Basically, it's a curve object, and if we take a look at our settings of the curve object, you can see here that I'm using 3D, I'm not using path. That's basically on by default. And then you can see here I have my extrude, and my extrude is set to 0.001 meter. Basically it's set up like this because when I animate, I try to animate to real world paper measurement sizes. So if I need to print something out, I can lean on that. So yeah, okay. So that's the basic setups, and then I have a material applied to it, which is basically this material here, and we can see its settings here. Okay, so quick screen grab if you want the screen grab. There you go. Okay, so there's nothing too special happening with this material. If you want to create your own curve, basically curve, Bezier, that's it. That's what we're looking at here. If you want to quickly look at your curve, you can tilde key, bring up our pie menu, and then just go view selected, and you're going to be able to see your curve. So setting that up really quickly, here we go, 3D, find our geometry and turn this to, what did I say it was? 0.001. That's it, right? And that's going to give us our curve object. So if I shrink this down all the way to this size here, we can see that's our curve object there. So if I shift to front view, I say A, V, and vector. Now we have all of these points that we can play with. If I want to assign that material that I had, basically I can come up here, I can press the plus button, and then I can click basic stroke. And that's it. Pretty simple. Okay, so other than that, if you're not using this material, you will have to learn to make your own. There are a lot of tutorials out there on the internet, so they will be super handy and helpful. Okay, so worthwhile learning. Okay, so now that that's done, let's talk about the curve and its relationship to the stop motion add-on. Here's the thing, we have this thing called the 3D cursor. If you hold down the shift key and your right button mouse, you can click and drag it. If you go shift S, you'll get a selection menu. This is because we set up our preferences the way we do, and so all you want to do is if you want to set it back to the middle, you can say cursor toward origin. But let's just quickly take a look at this before we get over to the stop motion add-on. It's like cursor to stop toward origin, you're going to use that lot, cursor to selected, and selection to cursor. So you're going to use those ones, you're going to use those three an awful lot. Okay, so cursor toward origin, and you can see it snaps there. This tool is by far the most handiest tool I've ever used in 3D. It's actually really smart. There's some good design that went there. Okay, so stop motion add-on. This button here basically brings up this panel. And if we take a look at this panel from left to right, we have our onion skin keys. There's going to be a new onion skin feature added in here soon. Soonish, let's just say that. We have a clear button key, and if you hover over the top of these menu items, over these buttons, yeah, there you go, you should get a tooltip. So we're not sure about this. Sometimes these tooltips are popping up and sometimes they're not. I find generally if I move this around and then I hover my mouse over and just wait for a little bit, the tooltip will pop up. Maybe that's something we can talk about and discover. Okay, it's not popping up. Okay, but you can see they're pretty, like, they're lengthy tooltips, and the tooltips don't bother me in length. The most important thing about a tooltip is that it should be clear and understandable to the user. So if you guys have any suggestions on the tooltips, tell us. Okay. Okay, so pin frame, we have clear frame plus their tooltips and their tooltip capability, right? So clear frame, we have add, we have remove, add blank keyframe, and then we have our duplicates, right? So we have duplicate the current keyframe, we have duplicate the objects with the current keyframes, and we have duplicate the current object with its keyframes, but clearing out all of the data. So basically they become empty keyframes. And that's really good for when you're wanting to keep your animation timing. Then basically we have our spacing keys. So this is really good for when you're spacing. So generally I find these keys to be really handy in the very beginning of animation, or unless I'm doing traditional animation with these. Eventually, at some point in time, you're going to have to get your hands dirty and be touching the keyframes in the timeline down here. So that's just going to happen. Okay, and then finally, these last three here, they kind of will end up working together, and you'll see that. So basically this one here extracts a keyframe out, or the object in time out at its current location in space, and the drawing or sculpture or whatever it is at that particular time and space. So this is super handy. And then this one here is merging the object back into your animation. And this is Anthony's idea, this one, which is really super cool. Basically, you can have a series of drawings all drawn up separately as separate objects. And then basically you can select them all in the order that they need to pop up in the timeline. And each object will be distributed in the timeline as you've selected 1, 2, 3, 4 in your timeline 1, 2, 3, 4 from the timeline cursor. So if your timeline cursor here is at, say, frame 10, and you have 5 objects selected, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects, then they're all going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's really good, because when you're saving your objects out into the asset library, you can drag those objects out, and then you can quickly merge your animations back into the timeline. So you're going to have animation reuse. So it's going to be really flexible that way. And we have a lot of ideas on how to improve that and a lot of these things. So yeah, we're super keen on that feature there as well. Okay, so that's basically all the buttons. So do you need all of these buttons here that are open? Pretty much. So once you have this panel open, you can pretty much just work with that panel. Okay, so I'm gonna close this one off here, and then the next one, we're just gonna do some really basic traditional animation using this current toolset. Okay, all right, thanks guys.